Let's first discuss the size of this sleeve. First, the seat seam at the bottom edge. At least leave a 7 mm allowance. Soon, we will create a channel to thread this elastic band through. We follow the marked lines on the blueprint. Draw these 4 lines above. Count from top to bottom. Fold the first and third lines like I do. Because I'm using a hot stylus, so I just scrape it a bit with my fingernail. If you are using water glue, you can apply a slight heat pressing. Then we move the first line towards the second line, bringing it close like this to align them together. When they are aligned, the back side is slightly folded together like this. Keep this position. Directly stretch a 1 mm visible thread on Fix top. These positions in place. Next, we fold the third line like this. We have already folded this part earlier. Fold again along this crease like this. Align it together with the fourth line like this. Similarly, secure it by pulling the string. After both folds are secured, it looks like this. Then we fold the seat seam at the bottom edge inward to the inside. After folding it up, we sew a line 4 mm inward from the edge. If you are using a thinner elastic band, then you can make this seam narrower. I'm using a 3 mm elastic band, so here I need to make a channel at least 4 mm wide. Otherwise, the elastic band won't pass through. I have already measured this thread. You can take a look. This is how its front back looks like this. Then don't rush to thread the elastic band right away. First, we tighten the drawstring at the top part. Then sew it on first. This part is tightened with double threads. It's exactly on the left and right sides of this sew a pull stitch 2 mm from each side. Here I use a stitch length of 3.5. Do not backstitch at the beginning. Leave the thread ends a bit longer. After testing the drawstring, don't pull it right away. After testing this drawstring, we can first thread the elastic band through. After the elastic band is threaded through, we sew a few stitches at the 2 side positions to secure it. After securing it firmly, we then handle this gathered part while simultaneously tightening the 2 bottom threads. Pull out this fold. Regarding these 2 bottom threads, at the front we're pulling the thread on the thread at its back side. Pull these 2 threads simultaneously. While pulling the thread, our left hand needs to hold this fabric. Pull it slightly towards the left-hand side. Don't simply pull this thread only with your right hand. Then let's first tidy up the fold a little. Set this part aside for now. Use the same method to make another identical sleeve. Next, let's examine this part of our lining fabric. In the main video, we drew the dart line 1.5 centimeters upwards. We draw a long line like this, but because this size is relatively small, we draw the dart line 1 centimeter upwards from the bottom edge. This is exactly where my hand is pointing now. It is 1 centimeter. Finally, let me add one more. It's about the waistband and the skirt hem after they have been joined together. Isn't there a turn back hem left on this side? Then this part will be a bit shorter. So when we do the turn back hem, we should try to leave it just larger. Measure the top and bottom sections like this. Then leave the middle reverse seam a little larger. This will make it easier to turn. For making the top, let's start by unpicking the seams. Here, the outer and inner front and back pieces are made from the same fabric. First, unpick the seams on the front side. Align and sew at the notch position. Sew the inner front and back pieces using the same method. After sewing, we spread the 4 dart seams outward to both sides. Then we first take out the front piece and a piece of pine stem lace. Sew the lace along the neckline seam allowance. After sewing it on, it looks like this. Then we take out the other lining piece. Align the outer fabric and lining with their front sides facing each other. Then, place the outer fabric with the newly sewn lace facing following upward. The stitch line where we just attached sew together the collar sections of the lining and outer fabric. After sewing, clip the seam allowance around the neckline. Be careful not to cut the stitching. After finishing the notches, we can attach this part here should be set aside. Let's handle the sleeves first. We need to leave a bit more on the bottom edge of the sleeves. Here I left approximately 7 to 8 here millimeters. We need to fold inwards to create some stretch. Then on the sleeve we have 6 lines like these. Mark them out at the same position. We need to fold the first and fourth lines. First, fold the 4th crease. Just fold along this line towards the reverse side. Here, since I'm using a 6 small pen, I'm directly scraping with my fingernail. If you're using a water small pen, you can iron it folding. We align the edge of this line with the bottommost line. Then on the front side, sew a 1 millimeter top stitch to secure it. After sewing, it looks like this. Then fold the first line to align with the third line. Similarly, unstitch one line. After unstitching the 2 lines, it looks like this. Then fold the bottom edge inward along the seam line. Unstitch 1 line to secure it. An elastic band needs to be attached. My elastic band is about 3 millimeters thick. So I removed about 1 to 5 millimeters of thread. Then we use a tool to thread the elastic band. After pulling the elastic band, let's first place a few stitches here to secure this. Then tighten the other end. Place a few stitches here as well. I have given a reference value for the tightness on the drawing. Everyone can take a look. Next, we make tucks on the upper part of the sleeve here. Here I create just 1 tuck line. Because this part is relatively short, at the start, I directly do a back stitch to secure it. And at the end, do not backstitch. Tighten this bottom thread and pull out the pleat. The size after pulling out the pleat matches the position we adjusted on the front. We can first mark and compare like this, then make some slight adjustments. Once it's basically consistent, we can start unpicking the stitches. The sleeve and the front of the bodice right sides together. Align the starting point when stitching the seam. Sew while adjusting the curve to align the top and bottom. Next, attach the other sleeve. After finishing both sleeves, I unfolded this whole piece, and this is how it looks. The upper part is the outer fabric. The 3 pieces below are the lining. Then we align the lining with the side seam beneath the contouring area and sew them together with the right sides Both facing sides each are other. The same. Next, we sew the side seams of the front and back pieces of the outer layer and the side seams of the sleeves. Similarly, sew with the right sides facing each other. Stitching on the other side is done the same way. After sewing, make a notch at the two underarm positions. Then move to the opening on the back of the front and back piece. Sew down from the neckline. Sew directly towards the bottom edge. Then continue sewing up to this neckline. When sewing to the bottom edge, encounter several pivot points. Spread everything apart to both sides. Next, at the right angle positions of the four corners. Then top from the lining shaping position. Turn this top to the front side. Tidy up the edges and corners. Overall shading after the shading and pressing is done. If you're a sister with well-executed, it's recommended to do it all around the edge. Apply visible stitching. This helps make the clothes smoother. Also, the sleeves of our top have two ways of presentation. One way is its normal look. Each puff sleeve is relatively Another voluminous. Way is to do it here. Take a bag and tie a bow knot. The bag I use here is that I cut a small strip from the same fabric. It's about 5 millimeters wide. You can also use ribbons or tie it with some pretty lace or similar decorations. Finally, we use the method from the tutorial folder, the method for sewing the armhole. To sew the armhole on the lining, the back part has a snap button. This top is now finished.
Before making the skirt, let's first work on the strap part. The first thing we will make is the flutter sleeve. Here we will start by folding the fabric. This edge with the crease helps it to be a bit smoother. Then align the flutter sleeve pattern with the crease position. Draw the arc lines at the edges. Then let me explain a bit before drawing this side. For example, the shape I'm using is horizontal. Normally, it should be a sculpture. This shape is accurate. However, due to my reference diagram, this part is only this long. If I were to carve and draw this diagram, its length is insufficient, so I can only draw it horizontally. However, the result of this extraction, but if everyone can create sculptures, it's still better to draw vertically. Leave a 5 millimeters margin at the back edge.
Then we cut it out. Then use the same method to cut off another flying sleeve. Next, let's proceed to pull it.
But before we pull, let me explain something. What is the length after it has been pulled? Here we take out the strap part. The fabric I'm using for the strap is a bit longer than what is shown in the width is not. The style needs to be added by oneself. But the style on both sides, I've basically grown some.
In fact, it's this length.
Except for the parts that extend out on all both sides. All of these are extra reserved. There is a reserved section here. It is to make our operation so that it can be easier to handle. It's too short. It's hard to operate. If you've already prepared it in advance, you haven't seen this section of the video. Then you can just the size you cut. That's fine. Because the excess part itself, we will eventually have to trim it down. The size after we finish folding the sleeves. It corresponds to the position between the 2 points and the length drawing. After we complete the folds of the should be calculated based on the two ends and not the small pointed angles outside the style line. The dimensions of this position and this position pulling must here match. I'm using 2 lines for pulling. It is located 2 millimeters to the right and left. Each should draw a line. Do not backstitch when pulling the thread. Also, widen the thread space. I'm using number 4 here.
Then simultaneously pull the 2 bottom lines closer. Extract this fold.
This end feels tight, making it difficult. Let's pull the bottom line of the other end
Then
again.
let's adjust the size after it has been folded.
It's perfectly positioned between these 2 points.
After making the adjustments, let's compare it.
This has already been mentioned earlier. What is aligned is the top of the other side is the same. Next, we will sew the band and the fly sleeve right sides together. The sewing position is the alignment position we just discussed. This section at the front and back does not need to be sewn.
After pulling it out, turn it to the front to check for any issues with this fold.
If there are no issues, you can remove the basting line
in the direction of the 4 equal sides.
Flip the bound section over to the bottom edge. Fold the style lines on both sides inward
Then
towards the
fold it
reverse
towards
side.
the center like this again.
Once folded this way, our flying sleeves will be enclosed in the middle. Flip it inside out. At this position, stitch a visible line to secure it, because we have reserved some length for this strap in the front. Especially the initial segment of the domestic machine start the stitches a bit lower down, as long as we ensure it's actual, including the 5mm positioning. This thread count is fine as it is.
If there are sisters like me with extra dimensions reserved,
we can trim it a bit after we just leave 5mm in the front and back. If no extra dimensions are reserved, this is how it looks when it's finally aligned.
then we use the same method to complete another strap.
Next, we take out the part of the waistband. Now we pull out the mark on one of the waistbands. The center point here is the midpoint after folding the waistband in half. Then we refer to the image of the waist position in the reference folder and mark the remaining 4 reference points. Then take out another piece of waist material. This piece of material does not need marking points. We face each other directly like this. Sew the seam on the right side. Here we need to insert the strap while sewing. The strap should be placed between the 2 pieces of fabric. This is to help everyone understand better.
I'll demonstrate its position at the top now.
Sew from the very front to the first marker point. Then, after inserting the strap, continue sewing. Stop approximately 1 centimeter before the second point. Pull the other end of the strap over flat like this. The middle must remain straight. The marker point is located at the bottom. In other words, strap. This strap is situated between these 2 marker points. Continue driving forward. Don't worry about the center point. Just drive past Continue driving until you reach the 4th then marker. Then we repeat the positions of the first and second markers. Use the same method to place the strap into the car. Also, just a quick reminder, this refers to our strap. Aren't we ultimately a distinct line for the front clear car? Line on top of it. Use this side of the clear line as the front of the
As
strap.
we start sewing now,
just put this strap with the front side facing up. There was a part of the sewing process, so I've patched up half of the fabric used here is different. But the steps are the same. Everyone should follow the method I mentioned earlier. Sewing the waistline, just put this strap in and sew it together.
After we finish sewing, we will turn it over and check.
Is there any problem?
Is the
with
orientation
this strap?
correct?
If there are no issues with everything, let's start by making an apron. First, Base it on the lace dimensions, cut it directly. This part doesn't need any decorations. Then we fold the fabric in half. I have already finished curling it. Draw its 5mm guideline. This 5mm guideline is only on the open side. Then we use this guideline as a reference. At 2mm on its left and 2 all vehicles are pulling. Do not reverse stitch while pulling the thread. First, loosen it slightly. I'm using 4 here.
After pulling, we simultaneously tighten the 2 bottom lines. Take out this fold.
After drawing it out, we wrap it around the apron like this. Make a rough comparison of its size.
Check if the length is suitable.
If it's suitable, we can start sewing. If it doesn't feel quite right, then continue to make adjustments. After making the adjustments, we will sew the edge on the front side of the fabric. Stitch count for this apron. I also draw on the front side of the fabric. This makes it convenient.
I align it while sewing.
Is this style neat? Then we sew along this style line. At this moment, the edge of the drawing position of the pattern is to the position of the fold is to don't mix it up.
After completing the drawing,
let's check this side as well. Is there any issue with the If there are no issues, we will remove this folded line. After finishing the extraction, this area may have some, especially for smaller sizes. We can first focus on the design. Make some cuts in these curved sections. After cutting the edges, it will become quite flat. Then we take out the other piece of fabric for the apron. I haven't cut the other piece. It's just a large piece of fabric. Sew it directly like this. After pulling it tight, we'll go directly along the line. We can sew along the line we marked earlier. Do not sew the straight part. Next, we'll use the cut apron fabric above as a reference. Trim off the excess part. Then, make some notches in the curved areas. After making the notches, start from the top. Turn it to the front side.
Press it firmly to smooth out the apron.
You can also do this at the edges. Make sure to go all the way to the seam to smooth it out. After removing the seam, we will use the straight line above as fold it in half.
Find its center point.
Make a mark on the back of the apron. Then take out the waistband that was prepared earlier. The center point of our waistband. Wasn't there a mark here before? Within the position of the seat line. Let's remove the fixed arrangement. This is facing directly opposite. Next, let's deal with the skirt. Here we need 2 layers for the skirt. One is the outer fabric. The outer fabric I use here is this patterned piece. And the lining is this white one. Their sizes are all the same. Everyone should follow the dimensions just as the design and cut it out yourself. Let's start by handling the lining. This vertical line here is an extra one I drew. No need to worry about it. The line at the bottom is our baseline. Use this baseline as the reference. Move up 1.5 centimeters. Draw the upper line parallel to this one. Then we will first establish this baseline. Fold inward towards the back.
Draw a line on it to secure it.
You can do it like this before sewing. First, iron it before drawing the line.
After securing it, the front looks like this.
Then do not touch this. Directly take out another piece of tablecloth is facing up. Then create this seam line at the bottom edge. It should match the 1.5 centimeters. This line in this position overlap vertically. Note that this refers to the seam of the bottom edge. Then we sew along the seam of the fabric's bottom edge.
After removing it, we flip the tablecloth over.
Once flipped up, it looks like this. There is a section left for the internal balance. Then we'll make some adjustments. This part is where the stylistic features are created on the fabric. Just make sure to cut along the style line. Both sides should be identical. You need to cut both sides. Be careful while cutting. Don't cut the surface fabric.
We are cutting this part because
later, we will need it this way. Sew the sides together from the front. Then we sew up to the previous point. When we cut at this position,
we need to push it inward a bit.
The reason we cut it open is that we can't sew on. Place it a bit further inside and just follow the stitching line to sew. Please wait a moment when the official remind you again. And that's because of the dress I'm currently making. It features a pattern because this pattern is already quite detailed. So I didn't add any more embellishments. If you want to add decorative lace, then you need to do this step. Sew it directly onto it. After sewing it well, proceed to the next step. We turn back to this area of the fabric's reverse. Here we need to position the waist area of the fabric and make a stitch for the gathering. Be careful with this gathering stitch. We only need to sew it on. Don't rush to pull the drawstring. The positions of the two sides in the video. These are the waist positions of the outer and lining also fabrics. Features a double drawstring. How to pull the double drawstring. I've mentioned this several times. I won't repeat it here. I've already pulled the lines on both sides. Then we shouldn't pull it immediately. Instead, we should first address the stitching position where the lining and outer fabric just created. Add another elastic strap. When we stitch this elastic band, leave 1 centimeter unstitched. Leave 1 centimeter inside the finish. You can make a mark like I did. Then the length of the elastic band. I provided a reference length on everyone can take a look. When you start sewing officially, this elastic band can be placed a bit higher. We need to sew while working. While pulling the elastic band, if you place it in the right position, then when you pull it tight, it is
just
likely
pull off
that
this strap.
So we leave some space at the front. But when we start driving, it starts from the mark we just mentioned.
The beginning.
Let's first backstitch a few times to then pull the elastic band tight. Align it with the underlying stitches.
I've pulled it to the tightest point here.
We need to remember this. The last centimeter shouldn't stop when the sewing reaches the marker point at the bottom. Make a few back stitches, finish, then cut off the excess elastic at both ends.
Then we can proceed with the previous folding process.
Simultaneously tighten both. Extract the fold. One side is difficult to pull the other end. It is also about drawing the all the folds of the ceremonial fabric and the surface fabric
after
must
drawing
be drawn
the folds.
smoothly. It is consistent with the length of our waistband. The position of the folds in the ceremonial fabric according to the size of the waistband. Once it's organized, this piece on the front of the waistband, sew it together with the outer fabric of the skirt.
This is where the front sides meet.
Sew the edge seam along the line.
Adjust the pleat's evenness while sewing. After sewing, flip it over to check.
Check for any issues. If there are no issues, you can remove the previously drawn folding
Then trim
line.
the seam a bit. We just sewed the waistline.
Trim the seam at the belt position and the seam that is sewn to the hem. You can also trim it a little. Just leave about 3 millimeters.
Here we turn the fabric to the front like this.
Fold the lining upwards. Align it with the other waist part.
Sew along this seam line. After sewing, you can also turn it to the front side.
Check if there are any issues with confirm that there are no issues. You should also remove this basting line. You can sew this piece that we just stitched give earlier. It a little trim. Just leave it about 3 millimeters. Also, if our stitching is done correctly here, it will form a complete circle. This area in the middle is completely open. If there aren't any mistakes, then we can proceed to the next step.
Sew the two sides.
Sew the sides here. We start from the waist and move downwards. The top part is where we just stitch the straps. You can just follow the stitching line down. However, we need to be mindful of something.
Didn't we cut a small
sewing.
loop at the beginning?
As we sew towards the lower half and approach
Make
this
sure
position,
to tuck this part in a bit.
Then continue to finish sewing. Additionally, this part should be measured length all the way to the outer and inner sections. You don't need to worry about this. Just get off the vehicle normally. It's normal for some components to be a bit loose. Then stitch the other side of the vehicle. We need to leave a reverse clasp on this side. Just leave it in the middle position, about 3 centimeters. Then sew down from the waist position as well. When sewing down to the bottom, don't forget to cut the part for the small button. Stuff it inside and then
After the sewing is done, we will trim the 4 corners at the top, bottom, left, and right.
Be careful not to cut into the seams while trimming. Flip the fabric to the front from the opening.
After flipping it over, we first check this position on both sides.
This means it is correct. Just like in the video. If it looks different from this, then it means that when you were sewing to this position, you accidentally stitched it in. Confirm that both positions are okay.
We will iron the clothes thoroughly.
The memory on this phone is a bit slow. Recently, while the teacher was filming a video, the following steps were not recorded. I will use another piece of fabric to fix it. The steps are the same. Only the fabric used. This is how it looks after I organized it. Then we need to draw a line on both sides. The bottom of this skirt should also be folded inward.
The other side should be treated the same way.
On my side, there is a reverse opening. Just organize it properly, and you can here I didn't use the long needle technique. The girls have done a good job removing the visible thread. It is recommended to do this on both the upper and lower sides. This will help make it a bit smooth. Lastly, we need to discuss the button position. Placing one button at the top, then place one button in the middle there's section. A button at the very end. Once we finish the snap buttons, you can also add details based on your preferences. Add some small decorations,